Welcome to KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio and the Southern California Business Report with Yvette Walker, a show dedicated to highlighting successful Southern California businesses and the people behind them.
Welcome and thank you for joining Southern California Business Report on ABC News and Talks, KMET 1490 AM, 98.1 FM, and KMET TV. I'm Yvette Walker, live blasting our signal from the center of Southern California, serving a population of over 25 million. Get us crystal clear and on demand by downloading the free live streaming app on Google Play and the Apple App Store. As always, a huge shout out to the team, Mitch, Bill, and Sean. I love you guys. And to our special advisory committee that can be found at www.scbrtalk.com/advisory committee. Visit the page, check out the leaders, and admire the good work being done. All right, everybody, today I have the distinct privilege to introduce Shannon D. Dicus, who was elected as the 36th Sheriff-Coroner for San Bernardino County on June 7th, 2022. San Bernardino County has over 2 million residents and is the nation's largest county geographically, spanning more than 20,056 miles. The department oversees the unincorporated areas, operates the county jail systems, provides marshal services in the county courts, and contracts law enforcement services to 14 of the 24 incorporated cities within the county. The department consists of 2,007 sworn personnel, 2,073 professional employees, and 1,552 volunteers with an annual budget of over $800 million. Shannon was raised in a law enforcement family and has lived in San Bernardino County for over 40 years. Shannon always knew he wanted to go into law enforcement and became a Sheriff's Explorer Scout while still in high school. After graduating, he enlisted in the United States Army and was assigned to the 101st Airborne Division, where he served as a military police officer at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and in Sinai, Egypt. After his military service, Shannon worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs Police Department in Loma Linda, California, until he was hired by the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department in 1991. Shannon graduated the 106th Basic Academy session and has since held positions at every rank within the department. His past assignments include corrections, as well as patrol in Barstow, Apple Valley, Victorville City, and the Victor Valley Station. He has also worked specialized details to include narcotics, SWAT, and criminal intelligence. More recently, Shannon served as the department's Undersheriff, where he oversaw day-to-day operations, as well as the internal affairs, civil liabilities, and Bureau of Administrative Divisions. Shannon has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from California State University, San Bernardino, and a master's degree in communications from California Baptist University. As a longtime resident of San Bernardino County, Shannon is devoted to the citizens of the county and is always looking for new and innovative ways to better serve them. Shannon believes in developing progressive programs that not only assist the public, but also those re-entering society. Shannon has led the way in instituting programs focusing on inmate rehabilitation and re-entry, department crisis mental health response, and county homelessness, to name a few. Shannon also takes great pride in being part of developing the department's next-gen information exchange. This program focuses on communicating with our younger community members, ages 16 to 35, where they can voice their concerns and ask questions about important issues that are vital to their generation. Through all of this, Shannon maintains his priorities of improving community relationships, public confidence, and affecting positive change from within the department. Thank you so much for being with us today, Sheriff Dicus.
Yvette, thank you. I'm glad to be here. I always enjoy visiting with you and talking about what's going on in the great county of San Bernardino.
Beautiful. So I know you're a veteran. You've been on this program multiple times, but for those first-time listeners, please share with us what inspired you to pursue a career in law enforcement and now becoming the sheriff of one of the largest geographical areas in the nation.
Well, Yvette, to me, it's pretty simple. I mean, obviously, I grew up here. My kids grew up here. And it's my way of trying to repay back the county in terms of a great place to raise a family for me, myself being raised here, and really kind of take that perspective and apply it to the way I believe the citizens of this county would like to be policed, particularly in modern times where it seems like, it's not always favorable to hang out with cops, so to speak. So I think it's at a time where to be able to lead our men and women that are doing the hard job in a difficult environment is exactly where I need to be at this period of time. And I could not be more proud of all of them.
Wonderful. So, there's a lot happening in the news. There are a lot of bills that are being introduced, and we're going to go through each one that is going to directly affect your agency. So let's start about recent changes that we've been hearing in the media regarding Prop 47. What are your thoughts on what the public would like to see today?
So this is where you and I are in the same business, Yvette. You feature many businesses that are, thriving and bringing new, whether it's entertainment or services to our county. So I talk to those same business people, and it's my job really to want them to come to this county to do business and be safe and be able to grow their business in a safe environment. So the biggest thing I hear about is Prop 47 as it relates to changes that were made all the way back in 2016 to the threshold for grand theft, which used to be $400, and of course it was raised to $950. And what that means is everything below $950, if it's a shoplifting case, for instance, is a misdemeanor versus a felony. And then it also did the same thing on narcotics. So possession of certain hard narcotics like methamphetamine are now a misdemeanor rather than being a felony. How all of those effects have not only affected business, but homelessness and a number of things that I'm sure you and I will talk about as we continue the conversation.
Yes, doing a little research, I learned that commercial burglary has increased by 16% from 2019 to 2022 across California. Is that representative of what we're seeing in the county of San Bernardino as well?
Yeah, we're seeing a number of property theft crimes go up, and certainly violence. I mean, we read about it in the papers. But specific to Prop 47, one of the most highly publicized things is this smash and grab type mass shoplifting things that we've all seen on the news. But the reality is what's really hurting business are these day in and day out petty thefts that are going on in terms of shoplifting that make it hard for any business really to profit. And for cops, it's very difficult. And this is what the public doesn't understand as it relates to Prop 47. And the reason I'd like to see some changes to this is by changing that misdemeanor threshold that you and I just talked about. When a misdemeanor occurs in the state of California, a law enforcement officer cannot arrest the person unless it occurs in their presence. So what's being talked about and highly publicized is, law enforcement's not doing their job. They're not making arrests. Well, we're prevented from arresting on a misdemeanor, and that was the change in the law. So it's only obvious that those things are going to be reported less because what we're doing is we're doing the investigation but not making the arrest. It may be a citation to the person. That's if the business detained the person that conducted the shoplifting or just simply the investigation. So of course you aren't going to see those arrest numbers as it relates to theft. But that's not an accurate interpretation by some researchers in the media as to what's really happening. So the cops are doing the good work out there. And I'll give you an example. So the way we flexed over the Christmas shopping season, because of that piece, we put deputies undercover in a lot of our businesses, particularly our shopping districts, our shopping malls, so that it would occur in our presence and we can make those arrests. And of course, I did a public service announcement to let people know that we're going to have them in there and the person that may be shopping next to you may be a cop. So unfortunately, we have to make these strides. And what I'm trying to talk to a lot of our legislators about now is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If they want to still keep those misdemeanor thresholds where they are, that's fine. But what a lot of the public doesn't know is the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, which is Prop 47. It's disingenuous in the title, in my opinion. What it also changed, though, was what we call petty theft with a prior. So as a society, even before, we were very forgiving. You do this 3 times, now you're looking at going to prison. So we gave you several times to make these mistakes. If we were to keep the threshold of Prop 47 where it's at, but brought back petty theft with a prior, then you're giving your law enforcement officers teeth to be able to make an arrest if a person has done this more than one time and they've been convicted of it. So I think that would help your law enforcement officers get actual tools to make these arrests and still give the second chance type of a thought process to the folks that may be committing these crimes. And it goes, marijuana is the same thing. Prop 64, we took out a felony for illicit production or cultivation of marijuana. And now we have this great big black market program. If we can make those 2 adjustments, you would be giving your cops real tools. So that's why I'm supporting James Ramos on Assembly Bill 1772, which is very similar to petty theft, and it allows you to aggregate the amounts of money and expose people to doing about 3 years in jail, which is similar to what petty theft with a prior would. That's teeth, and that's what's different. Unfortunately, some of the things I'm seeing put forward by the legislature, and they specifically say that the public doesn't want Prop 47 changed. Even some of our most liberal education institutions have said that if Prop 47 were to go to the voters today, it would not be passed.
Right, because this is something that was voted in, by people like myself, by you, the voters, the residents, under the Safe Communities Act. But now that we've had an opportunity to get a taste of what that Safe Communities Act is, do you feel like the pendulum is in fact swinging in the other direction and saying, you know what, maybe this isn't, a safer community as I remember prior to voting for this?
Absolutely. I think the public's fed up with it. Come on, every single time we go to the grocery store, you and I are doing it. I mean, I'm a law enforcement officer, and generally I carry a gun with me when I go places. So the reality of that is I'm still looking over my shoulder. I worry about my family when they go out shopping. It's just not the same environment. The reality is you or anybody else should be able to carry on their day, not look over their shoulder, and not have to worry about crime. But if we're being honest with ourselves, that's not the reality here in California now.
Absolutely. So, a very interesting thing occurred recently. There was recently a big rig truck pursuit. It started in Bakersfield, okay? And it ended not even 5 to 8 miles inside of the San Bernardino County border. What does that say about law enforcement and what people can expect if they, intend on behaving out of line, despite Prop 47?
Well, San Bernardino County always has, and I want to make sure it continues to be, a law and order county. So when you have these pursuits enter the county, it's going to be our job to assist that agency that started the pursuit to stop it, make sure citizens don't get hurt. The longer these things linger on, the worse they get. So I work with all 10 of my municipal police chiefs, and we will all work very closely together to know that we take those things seriously. We put spike strips out immediately and try to bring those things to as safe of a close as we possibly can, and just take them serious. And then from the sheriff's perspective and the chiefs in this county, you come to San Bernardino County and commit crime, you're going to get an answer. And the answer is you're going to jail.
Right. And as a resident of San Bernardino County, and on the other side of, either being a perpetrator or victim, I'm very happy to know that my law enforcement is there to protect me and advocate for victims. So thank you for that, Sheriff, because I too live just right in that area where that truck actually took place, that truck chase took place. Talk a little bit more about AB 109 and the adjustment that is looking to be implemented.
So one of the things, if we make adjustments to Prop 47 of it, like I mentioned, James Bill. Mm-hmm. So if that's 3 years, yet many jails, not so much in my county, I have a fairly large capacity, but other counties are already at capacity. So if we were to make these changes, it certainly is beneficial to business and beneficial to the public at large. But as sheriffs jail these people, because we've done prison realignment, the reality is these people used to go to prison. So it's going to force the state into a position where we have to think about what we're doing. When people commit crime, there should be penalties, and the state needs to be a partner and maybe not close these prisons and create capacity where it all isn't incumbent on, the local community. If you've seen realignment, it's not just prison realignment. We're realigning mental health right now and a number of things and putting the onus on county and city government, when the reality is the state's not the partner it once was. And some of these changes aren't all beneficial. And at the same time, as much as you can say, hey, these things aren't beneficial, I'll tell you where I do think the state has a decent viewpoint, and that's with mental health and homelessness and some of the changes that they're trying to make and support that population. Cops need more tools to be able to get those folks off the street. Because if we're talking about the human condition in its purest form, we're not doing the right thing. And I'm not saying as the sheriff putting them all in jail is the answer, but right now leaving them on the streets to rot in their own skin from mental health and substance abuse is the wrong thing, and we should not be doing that.
Right. And so what, in your viewpoint, would make the state a positive and helpful partner in your work against these challenges that you're experiencing today?
Well, I think if we can make those changes to Prop 47, again, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're not saying it's all bad, but draw a line in the sand somewhere for the public's sake. Create those felony penalties, if you will, on the back end of both of those initiatives. They have to go back to the voters anyway because it's a modification of a proposition that was voted in by the public. Hear from the voters. That's who I work for. I work for the citizens of San Bernardino County. I see more party line political activity rather than just answering a straight up question. Are we really taking care of the district and are we taking care of the state? And we have all these professionals throwing statistics at everything. Let's simply ask ourselves, do things feel or look like they're better or they are not? And I think most of us would say they are not. So if we make those changes to Prop 47, we can make some changes to prison realignment, again, if necessary, and get some more state support. The Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement used to be a big supporting factor when back in the days of methamphetamine labs and things that were plaguing our desert. So now, go full circle, we have these large-scale cultivations. We have the Bureau of Cannabis Control. They are good partners. They do send an officer out here to help us and do those things, but they don't have nearly the capacity and the hundreds of people that could assist us like they used to. And so we're missing a number of those things. And by pushing these things down to the counties, there's only so far we can go. And let's face it, whether it's regular business or whether it's law enforcement, we're all having difficulty hiring people. And with the way the profession of law enforcement has been vilified in the last 5 years, I'm not getting folks lining up the door to be law enforcement officers anymore. That's kind of a sad state of affairs.
Absolutely. And so recently in the news, again, national headlines, 6 people killed in the desert, San Bernardino County recently. How is that related to Proposition 64 and cannabis cultivation and the black market versus, the market that is overseen with checks and balances?
So California voters voted in to legalize marijuana for personal use. But again, what the voters didn't know and what wasn't clearly presented or certainly advertised, you had to read the fine print, was making illegal cultivation a misdemeanor also. So what that's done is reduce the penalties in California for illegal cultivation and now created this black market to other states where the penalties are much stiffer. So we're seeing black market marijuana being shipped out of state. And then what do you see? Who's going to benefit or profit from that? Gangs, the cartel. You mentioned that murder. It was 6 victims, Yvette, 6 victims, and the suspect burned the bodies. Mm-hmm. When you have egregious crime like that occur, when you burn bodies, there's 2 things going on there. One is destruction of evidence, and the second one is sending a message. So the other side of this were the 5 suspects, and when we break this down, and the Department of Homeland Security helped us with this, all of the suspects involved, including the victims and suspects, are all illegal immigrants. So when you tie it to national news headlines about people coming across the border, some of them are coming across the border and committing crime. And as a state, Prop 64 created a black market. We created an opening where people can come in and profit from this. And now they're warring over it, and we get an egregious murder like that. That's something we shouldn't stand for. That is very similar to things we're seeing that go on in South America, not the United States. So it's just a different ballgame. And what the law enforcement officers are up against out there in terms of violence, 2 officer-involved shootings a month on average in my department. Used to be you and I do an interview like this, and I tell you it hasn't happened for a year and a half. But consistently for over a year now, 2 officer-involved shootings a month. That's the violence that's occurring in our streets.
Oh my goodness. And so in addition to, the legal ramifications of Prop 64, there are also environmental issues. And, I did a little bit of research and I learned that carbofuran was a pesticide that was used on some of these illegal grows, that actually a teaspoon of it can kill a bear, and has also shown to harm human reproductive systems. Please talk about those thresholds and those checks and balances, so to speak, when you're talking about the black market versus the market that is going to be supported by law enforcement because they're going through the proper channels.
Sure. So, if a person goes through the proper permits and are checked on regularly by the Bureau of Cannabis Control, then of course, they're doing the right thing, and they're doing what the voters expected them to do, plus all the promises that were made in relation to the taxes and things that will be collected. Well, if you think about the billions of dollars in the illicit market, there are taxes being collected. And just like the tax regulatory pieces aren't in place, the environmental regulatory pieces aren't in place either. So we're talking about wells drilled illegally, water usage that's completely illegal in desert areas. You don't see farming going on in a number of the areas where we see these grows occur. So again, even an illegal market on selling water to these people doing these grows. I mean, there are so many things that spin out. But we live in a state with a pristine coastline, and we prize environmentalism. But yet we allow something like carbofuran to come in because of this illicit market piece and be used in these grows. And so tainting water supplies and a number of those things. And yes, we try to go the environmental side by using fish and game law enforcement officers to prosecute those cases for us. But the reality is those agencies aren't as big as what we really need to solve this problem. And we could solve the problem overnight by making illicit cultivation a felony again and make sure it would drive everybody to the market. The other thing is, I think the Bureau of Cannabis Control, we need the legal market to have marijuana and those things tested also. Because how do you know if the illegal market goes over or blends over, right? You're only going to know it if you're tracking it. And the other thing you're going to know is, what if carbofuran starts appearing at legal dispensaries? How do we know that? How does the public know what they're ingesting? I haven't seen those reports come back from the Bureau of Cannabis Control, and I certainly would advocate for those to be made public, and more importantly, made public to our legislators so they know how to make the adjustments as it relates to the cannabis market as a whole.
Right. You would think that the legal channel includes that public health element, right? Because if they're going through the legal channels, it's almost assumed that these plants, these cannabis products are tested prior to being consumed through the legal channels as well. But that is not the case, it sounds like.
Well, if they are, I certainly don't see the documentation being posted anywhere. I don't know how often it's occurring. And those are things that I would encourage legislators to not only change illicit cultivation to a felony, but also make some changes to the tax structure. And as a result of that, some of the laboratory structure and analysis of these things to ensure the illicit market isn't bleeding into the legal market, that we're doing the right thing.
Right, because I'm sure consumers of the legal channels want to know, they're probably assuming, hey, this is safe, we're going through the legal channels, but the reality is there's kind of a gray area where there is no certainty.
That's what I've seen, and that's what I feel. There is no certainty there to that market. And again, if we are doing that type of analysis, then how does the public know? It probably should be shared with them, and certainly the legislature, so they can get an idea about where the market's really at.
Right. And so going back to water, right, because water is basically liquid gold, especially here in California. Thank God for the recent rains. They're filling our reservoirs and everything else. But also with this report that I read, it talked about 5.4 million gallons a year that were being used for one particular growth in the Sierra Mountains. Please talk about what you have observed locally in terms of illegal wells and taking water that way.
So a number of these wells, when we eradicate a grow, for instance, and they're taken down, that's a pipe that goes all the way down to the water table. And oftentimes those need to be capped and stored properly in a number of these things. But remember, it's just kind of this quick criminal usage of property. It's not an investment of a property owner. So those things aren't being taken care of properly. Not too far from where the murders occurred, we've had citizens that have had to dig their wells deeper because of that mass amount of water you described being pulled out of the ground. Their wells sand up. So they're not pulling water anymore. So you have to dig them deeper. And these are just some of the environmental problems that we're just scratching the surface on. Our board here in San Bernardino County has invested. Now I've got multiple marijuana teams. We've gotten to the point where we have a much better handle on this, but we can't completely eradicate it. We're still playing whack-a-mole. They're still starting up, and there's just too much money in the illegal market to stop this. We've gotten code enforcement on board. We've hit property owners for allowing these things to occur on their property, or certainly property managers that allow these things to occur through code enforcement. And really, that's been more effective because the criminal penalties for this are only $500. When you're making millions of dollars on a marijuana grow, $500 is nothing. So hitting them in the pocketbook with code enforcement issues has really been one of our primary enforcement tactics in this county, and we've seen some success out of that. But no matter what, until we address the larger problem here, which is Prop 64, we're going to continue to have to do this.
Beautiful. And do you see plans to adjust Prop 64?
Right now, I don't. I do have some legislators that are going to hold a trailer bill, primarily because that murder really brought this back to the forefront of illegal marijuana cultivation. I do have some very thoughtful legislators. Freddie Rodriguez is one of them that's going to try to do some of these things. But we could talk for hours about the public safety committees and how bills have to work to get to where they need to be. And even when I have a number of these legislators that are truly willing to help their districts out, there's a number of them that are going to block and see things more along party lines. And I just don't have a lot of faith that we're going to see any true teeth in these laws that give law enforcement needed tools to protect the public.
All right, well, we're coming up on a break, everybody. Yvette Walker here with ABC News and Talk, Southern California Business Report, here today with Sheriff Shannon Dicus of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, serving the largest geographic county in the nation with over 2.1 million residents, with 8 county and 14 contract patrol stations and over 4,200 employees, ensuring safety for the communities it serves. The department includes 1,552 volunteers and operates with an annual budget of over $800 million. When we return.
Cal State San Bernardino is home to the only school of entrepreneurship in California. With globally ranked degree programs, you can start your journey today to become a successful entrepreneur. Learn more and connect at entre.csusb.edu.
Hi, I'm Dana Rademacher with MGR Property Management.
A lot of people wonder about the value that property management has for their property. Property management can include all property types, including residential, commercial, and HOA. It is valuable because property managers are experienced in what can happen at your property. We're aware of liabilities. We're able to do predictive and preventative maintenance. We know what is coming up with the changes in the weather, the seasons, how old certain aspects or different capital projects at your property are. We're able to best negotiate contract pricing, legalities with your tenants, and anything else that you may need to ensure that you're getting the full value of your property.
If you're interested in speaking with the representative at MGR Property Management regarding your property management needs, you can visit our website at mgrrealestate.com, or you can call our number at area code 909-581-6600 to be connected with the representative.
The University of La Verne is rated first in California for alumni satisfaction. Learn more about accelerated programs offered online and on campus in La Verne, Irvine, Ontario, Burbank, or College of the Canyons. Visit go.laverne.edu. The University of La Verne. go.laverne.edu.
Hi, I'm San Bernardino County Sheriff Shannon Dicus. If you're looking to start an exciting career in law enforcement and make a difference in your community, we are hiring dispatchers, nurses, deputies, laterals, and many more. For a complete list of our jobs and more information, visit sheriffsjobs.com.
Ontario International Airport is onto a better way to fly with over 65 daily nonstop flights to more than 20 major destinations and the easiest airport experience in Southern California. Visit flyonto.com/Ontario to learn more about Ontario International Airport today.
We are the Empire Strikers, the professional sports team of the Inland Empire. We are a fast-actioned and community-inspired pro indoor soccer team. Our mission is to inspire the Empire. Home games, community events, watch parties, and youth camps are all back. Professional indoor soccer is back. Join us and come watch the greatest show on turf at Toyota Arena or on Twitch. Visit www.theempirestrikers.com for more and any information.
Welcome back, everyone. Yvette Walker with ABC News and Talk Southern California Business Report, here today with Sheriff Shannon Dicus of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, serving the largest geographical county in the nation with over 2.1 million residents, with 8 county and 14 contract patrol stations and over 4,200 employees, ensuring safety for the communities it serves. The department includes 1,552 volunteers and operates with an annual budget of over $800 million. Wow, what a task, Sheriff Dicus. Thank you so much for being with us today.
No, my pleasure.
Perfect. So earlier in the conversation, we talked about bills that are looking to be adjusted, including Prop 64. And something that we touched on was how mental health plays into this. Please talk about some of the mental health challenges, how that impacts homelessness, and efforts from the state and in the county.
Sure. That's probably one of the most difficult issues that certainly affects the public and quality of life really across the state, and certainly here in San Bernardino County. So when you talk about homelessness, there's a lot of things. We talked about Prop 47, and you'll hear a lot of people get involved and say, oh, well, Prop 47 has nothing to do with this. I bet that is not true. I mean, if you lower the threshold for misdemeanors in terms of drug use, there are very few penalties that will make people. I mean, let's face it, when a doctor says that, hey, Shannon, you need to lose a little bit of weight because you're going to have heart problems or something like that, that really is the stick that causes you to change your life. Well, it's always been the law that did that for illicit drug use. We had drug court. Again, just like petty theft with the prior that we were very sympathetic in terms of giving people chances. Drug court used to give you a chance. You may have been arrested for a felony possession, but the courts would say, Shannon, if you go and get this rehab and bring me the certificate that you're successful, we'll knock that felony down to a misdemeanor. That is a tool that makes you change your behavior. We don't have that tool anymore. It's certainly not being used to the extent it once was because, again, you're talking about a misdemeanor penalty. So why do you see an increase in homelessness and subsequent comorbidity with substance abuse? The reality is the people that want to do these things are going to continue to do them. So, that's a bold statement, Sheriff. I have a HOPE team. They're specifically designed to go out and try to get people housed. They're in the streets, they're under the bridges, and they interact with these people. On average, we make about 6,000 contacts a year. When you drill it down to individuals in this county, it's about 2,600 people total that we drill down in individuals, and annually about 500 to 600 of those folks we can help. They're ready for help. We can get them Project Room Key, a number of things we found some success with. But the large majority of them are ones that don't want help. They have comorbidity between mental health issues and substance abuse. And let's face it, some of that substance abuse drives the mental health issue. And they don't want help. They don't want to go into any of these facilities. There's rules. You have to be in by 10. A number of things they're just not willing to comply with. That's the population. So where do we partner? Getting back to your larger question, with the state, you're seeing the governor that's, putting forth tools. You've seen the legislature put forth tools that help law enforcement. So what are those? Laura's Law, which is a bit of a conservatorship, doesn't deal with substance abuse disorder, but then you've got care court, where there is comorbidity that will deal with some instances of certainly mental health, schizophrenia, and those things like that. Laura's Law is that stopgap to some case. And then we just had Senate Bill 43, which changed the definition of gravely disabled. Why is that important for cops? It's that Welfare and Institutions Code 5150. If you're unable to take care of yourself or others, that's something a law enforcement officer would be able to take you to a medical facility and enter you into that facility under a 5150. Extending that definition, and what Senate Bill 43 did is apply that to severe substance abuse disorder. So those are good tools. The problem is like in the case of Senate Bill 43, in the case of Laura's Law, the county you live in has to implement those. And it's a capacity issue for the Departments of Behavioral Health and Public Health, which is a serious issue. But if the cops can figure out we needed a HOPE team 10 years ago, we should have been building this capacity all along. So you see the state get frustrated with local government and this lack of capacity building and the millions, if not billions of dollars that they've invested into the local agencies. And I think we're at a point, we mentioned Proposition 1. And why are we at that point right now where they're talking about taking some of that local money and being more directed to build this capacity? And I can just tell you from a law enforcement officer's perspective, we need the capacity. If we're going to truly help the human condition, this rotting in your own skin type of philosophy that we see in our streets and what our eyes are actually, picking up on, it's a problem. And so I understand why all these things going out. And my hope is that some of these capacities can be built and we'll move that curve around. Because right now we work with a lot of faith-based and community-based organizations, which are phenomenal. And when Proposition 47 was put into place, that was the stopgap for drug abuse and mental health. But the reality is every time we do a point in time count for homelessness, that numbers just keep driving up. Even with the best efforts of the faith-based and community-based organizations, we're still not keeping up with the problem.
And so in your view, Sheriff, what does the ideal capacity look like?
So having places where a lot of homeless folks have pets, for instance, a place where you can take the pet and they don't lose their connection to that, because in some cases that might be what they have. But changing the justice system a bit, where if we bring in somebody that's gravely disabled, having a professional come in there and evaluate them, make recommendations for the court, and instead of sentencing somebody that has a mental health issue to jail or a substance abuse issue to jail, sentence them to 120-day rehab, sentence them to some type of conservatorship where they can get that intense treatment to try to get them to where they're able to cope with their own lives once again and become productive citizens in the community. And a conservatorship is anything ranging from, hey, cognitively, I may not understand how to control the money that comes into my bank account monthly, so I just need somebody to help me with that, all the way down to what we envision in our minds, and that's folks with, in the medical facilities wearing white coats, really trying to help with severe mental health issues. And it's really that gambit. And involving the court in the center of that to, of course, protect people's civil rights, which everybody's concerned about. I think there is a balance. But the balance is, and the answer is not send them to jail, but send them into places that they just can't walk freely in society until these issues have been addressed.
Right. So talking about civil rights, we're going to take it way back in terms of public policy issues and talk about the First Amendment. Recently in the news, it seems that a judge put into jail the Justice 8. Please talk about that in the news headlines and what that means and what is the First Amendment versus what maybe the Justice 8 was penalized for doing.
So when you become a law enforcement officer, you swear to protect the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of California. And obviously your freedom to address your government is something we've always prized. And it's peaceful assemblies to being able to deal with any issue. And it could be at a city council meeting, garnering all the way up to being at the steps of the state capitol or all the way at the White House. But the term is peaceable. So when we're talking about these types of issues, the line you cross there when we're talking about your rights is taking action, or in other words, creating violence. And you mentioned the Justice 8. Well, the Justice 8 came to our attention on a number of protests that were occurring here. And they actually assaulted a number of citizens in the Victorville area that were at a car wash, stopping their car, stopping their freedom of movement, and a number of things. The deputies responded and made some arrests. But as a result of that, we found out there were 4 other law enforcement agencies, one in LA County and several here in San Bernardino County, that had these open cases. So what we realized is that they were posting these things, these assaults on social media, and claiming they were protected speech type of activities. So we took time, we took 3 months, we wrote search warrants. We have the whole videos, not edited videos, but the whole videos that show these crimes being committed. And as a result, we filed cases against this group called the Justice 8. And it's about six or seven individuals in total that have a number of felony counts on them as a result of their activities. Why is that important to me? Is that we certainly know what a person's rights are. We encourage them and we protect them. But the minute you start hurting innocent civilians outside of that, that's when a line is drawn in the sand. And we know the difference. And we know exactly what people's rights are. And we arrested those folks and did a fairly comprehensive case. And as a result of that, they're going through the court system now.
Wow. Okay, so now we're going to go talk about the conceal and carry, because San Bernardino County is popular. I have actually thought about obtaining my own concealed carry. So please talk about SB2 and a bill that is looking to impact that.
Yeah, so we were just talking about the First Amendment, so we're going to switch gears and talk about the Second Amendment and SB2 as a whole. But we got to start back a little bit. There was a recent decision called the Bruin decision, and it used to be to get a concealed weapon, for me to issue it to a citizen, there were requirements. You had to have certain moral character requirements, not committed a felony, a number of things. What the Bruin decision said is no longer do you have to have cause. So Yvette, if you're a business owner and say, hey, I make nighttime deposits, I'd feel much better if I was able to arm myself during making those nighttime deposits. That's a reasonable expectation, or was in the past, and to be issued a concealed weapons permit. What the Bruin decision was the Supreme Court basically saying, hey, if you're a good citizen, you have the right to carry a concealed weapon. You don't have to have this causal statement. And I completely agree with that. So in San Bernardino County, we have over 22,000 CCW holders. But as a result of the Bruin decision, for some reason, legislators in California decided that they needed to have more restrictions and a number of things that, frankly, in my mind, are trying to dissuade people from having a concealed weapons permit. And what SB2 was the second rendering of a bill. The previous one was Senate Bill 918, and that didn't make it. The following year, they came back with Senate Bill 2. And what Senate Bill 2 did was basically put a lot more requirements on a CCW holder in terms of training, background checks, who can do the training, the qualifications of those trainers. But the thing they did, and this is what's tied up currently in federal court, is the thing it did is it restricted where people could carry those firearms. Basically, the way SB2 reads is you can't carry it most places you probably want to carry your firearm to protect yourself, and including church and places that I feel as a law enforcement officer, where are we seeing people get attacked across the country? And now we're going to restrict men and women who are qualified to carry firearms from having them there. So it's a concern, but that portion of it is wrapped up in federal court. We'll see what happens in April when this comes around. I certainly hope that's found unconstitutional and we can keep moving forward, because even though I'm a Second Amendment supporter, I think right now, while we're seeing the lawlessness in our streets, if people want to protect themselves, I should be able to facilitate that and make sure they have the ability, because I know the cops in San Bernardino County, whether it's a municipal agency or my deputies, they will do their very best to get to you on your worst day. But the reality is, if we don't get there in time, I want you or anybody else that wants to have a concealed weapon to be able to protect themselves. And I just take a simpler viewpoint of this, instead of wrapping it up in this greater bureaucracy, which is alleging that all of these good people that have CCWs are somehow responsible for the gun crime and the crime that we're seeing. And that's ridiculous, and that is not the truth.
So of these 22,000 CCW holders in the county of San Bernardino, what insight or statistics or anecdotes can you offer that demonstrate, maybe they have responded to exactly the way they should respond in moments that have saved lives versus the CCW carriers actually engaging in hurting those around them? So and this is actual fact. Since I've been the sheriff here, I've only had to revoke 2 of those permits. 2 out of 22,000 revoke those. And the other thing that people don't understand is just because you submit for a CCW doesn't mean you're going to get it. There are probably about 25 CCWs that we reject on a monthly basis, simply because of the application and a number of things. Maybe they weren't completely truthful in their application. There were convictions that prevent them from having a CCW and a number of those things. So we're very careful with this. We want to make sure that the citizens that meet that right moral character and certainly have the right to carry a firearm are able to do so in a manner where we facilitate good training of that person. And heaven forbid, on their worst day, they have to use their firearm. Right. So speaking of firearms, there's also SB 1160. Please tell us about that as well.
Sure. So, and it's funny that the senator that introduced 1160 is the same one that introduced or was the primary author on SB2 and Senate Bill 918. And they're timing out. They can't be a senator anymore. So it seems like it's kind of a last minute rush, in my opinion, to try to push all of these bills through that are anti-gun. And that's just, I'm just being frank. But 1160 is a bill that would require people to annually register their firearms. And you already register your firearm when you purchase it, but to do this annual registration. So, we have to remember too that law-abiding citizens may collect guns, they may have antiques, people just like guns. It doesn't make them a criminal. And I think this puts more bureaucracy, just like SB2, onto legal gun holders. And all that information has to be regularly done with the Department of Justice. Another bill that's affecting that is Assembly Bill 3067. And so now, when you're talking about getting homeowners insurance, having to report to the homeowners insurance how many guns you have, and how they're kept, what's going on with that in terms of your ability to get insurance. I don't know about you, but you hear about all these insurance companies that are leaving California. I don't see this, number one, making it any better. And from the purest sense of being a Second Amendment supporter, the whole idea about Second Amendment is just like being able, for the First Amendment, to redress the government. And in the Second Amendment, we're talking about the same thing. So you're going to make people highly skeptical about, oh my gosh, now they know I've got guns and they know I've got all these other things. And we're creating a problem that doesn't need to be a problem at all. We've got law-abiding citizens trying to protect themselves that respect the Second Amendment. I respect the Second Amendment. And here's the thing. Law enforcement in San Bernardino County knows the difference between what's legal in the First Amendment and what's legal in the Second Amendment. We're going to support our citizens that are exercising their rights. And that's a big deal to me as the sheriff of San Bernardino County.
Wow. So let's jump to SB 1160.
Yeah, so 1160 is the one we were talking about just briefly. And that is simply having to register your firearm annually every month. And the same thing, if I were to have a firearm and I were to sell it to you, we have to go do that through a gun dealer so that it would go out of being registered in my name and being registered into yours. That same process would be something with all of our guns we're having to do annually.
Right. And so you also mentioned having to insure them. What does that look like for the gun owner? Do we have an idea of what those insurance premiums would look like? Would that be per gun? Would that be just for being a gun owner in general? Do we have any idea of the impact that would have on gun owners, at least the 22,000 within San Bernardino County that do have CCWs?
Yeah, so that's the unknown part of it, is what would that cause and for the property owners and a number of those things. I don't think we know what that is because it's something that's never really been done before or explored before. I just know we have home insurance problems as it relates primarily to fire in the state of California. So what's this going to do with insurers? And knowing where people are going, just people naturally wanting to protect their homes, which is completely legal to do, and to have that firearm, but to turn around and tell people where they are, how you store it, a number of things, I think that's a government overreach.
Right. So we were talking about this earlier and talking about what the Public Safety Committee has under their purview. Please talk about the role of the Public Safety Committee in relationship to these proposed bills.
So the role of the Public Safety Committee, anything that touches public safety in general, has to go through them in terms of the bill, be examined by them, and they decide whether or not they're going to move the bill through the process or essentially kill the bill right there in the committee. Unfortunately, what I've seen in my experience over the last few years with them, and you mentioned it earlier, we're about victims in this county. The Public Safety Committee has been far more sympathetic to suspects, not victims. So that's why I say I don't necessarily have a lot of hope that the Public Safety Committee is going to pass these things that give their police officers teeth, because they take more of a political viewpoint of it, not really what's in the best interest of the public. And certainly, I don't think the general public is really going to care about what's happening to the suspects and what's unfair. There are so many things that are couched in terms of equity and statistics that really don't completely pan out. We need to talk about the human condition and really worry about how we're taking good care of people. We probably wouldn't have a number of people seeking CCWs if they truly felt safe. So I hope by addressing Prop 47 and getting the Public Safety Committee to really allow some of these bills through that give police officers more tools, we'll fix a number of these social issues that are trending that we're all dealing with right now.
So, Sheriff Dicus, please talk about how the community can learn more about these efforts and support bills that are designed to protect victims of crimes.
So you mentioned it earlier, the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, right? Sounds like a good deal. We're going to vote for it. Well, the reality is as voters, we need to get into the fine print. We certainly need to understand what those bills mean. I just recently saw a bipartisan press conference where they're calling bills Safer California. And when you get into there, it beats around the bush at Prop 47, but it really doesn't completely tackle it. And we need the voters to understand that. So one of the things that I'm trying to do is a regular newsletter. And that newsletter puts out, it really summarizes my opinion on a number of these bills so that I can educate the folks in San Bernardino County about how this affects public safety. And then they can make their own opinions about what they think they need to vote for. And more importantly, I would like more citizens to get involved with their legislators and know that if you're a CCW holder, that one of the legislators that touches this county is basically insinuating you're a criminal.
Wow. Well, Sheriff, we're coming up on time, but briefly tell us what are your priorities as you look at the next year coming forward?
My priority is really I'm going to work with the legislators to do our best to make these changes, give cops teeth, and again, not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Make sure I'm sympathetic to both sides of the equation as the sheriff and being reasonable. I think we need more reasonableness. So if I can give my deputies more tools to fix some of these societal issues, and if some of those tools manifest themselves in being able to help with homelessness and mental health issues, truly for quality of life purposes, get these people off the street for both their quality of life and get them the treatment that they need, and for the quality of life of the citizens that are afraid to walk around because crimes are being committed, then, and I hope that if we continue to do those efforts, I'll show up, I'll work with legislators and keep the citizens of this county protected and keep the deputies protected, then we're doing something.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being with us, Sheriff Dicus. We will have you on as a regular guest for future updates.
Thank you, Yvette. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, let's listen to a few community updates. Join San Antonio Regional Hospital for their 2024 board certified cardiologist moderating the cardiovascular community panel discussion. Everything you've wanted to ask a cardiologist, taking place Wednesday, February 28th from 6 to 7:15 p.m. at San Antonio Regional Hospital, located at 999 San Bernardino Road in Upland. Visit sarh.org for more information. Don't miss the Empire Strikers match against Kansas City Comets on Wednesday, February 28th, with kickoff at 7 p.m. Call 909-457-0252 or visit empirestrikers.com for more information and defend the Empire. Don't forget to look for us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Check us out at scbrtalk.com. Don't miss my interview with Chief Dan Munsey, Fire Chief and Fire Warden for San Bernardino County's Fire Protection District, one of the largest fire departments in the United States, providing critical fire protection and emergency services to over 60 communities throughout the county, talking about the innovative technologies and techniques being used to fight fires, the importance of community outreach, education, staffing, budgeting, and training with an unwavering dedication to keeping communities safe. Next week, we will have Bill Velto, the mayor of Upland, who has been a resident of Upland for over 60 years. Bill currently serves as a director for the Inland Empire Utilities Agency, the chairman of the Water Facility Authority, member of the Chino Basin Water Master Board, the chief financial officer for the San Antonio Water Company, and on the Omnitrans Board of Directors. He also serves on numerous other local and regional boards. Bill also serves on the Mount San Antonio College Real Estate Education Committee and was named Chaffey College Alumni of the Year for 2023. You do not want to miss it. We will see you all next week.